Welcome to You Brew Kombucha. Today we're going to talk about using a heat mat to help with your kombucha fermentation. So I've gotten a lot of questions from homebrewers who live in colder climates asking if I can recommend any heat mats to use when they are fermenting kombucha. So for a little bit of context, the ideal temperature range for kombucha to ferment within is right around between 75 degrees Fahrenheit to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It can definitely ferment outside of that range, so I generally recommend making sure that your kombucha is fermenting above 70 degrees but below 90 degrees. But there are a lot of people who like to homebrew kombucha that live in colder climates that get very cold in the winter and drop below that 65, 60 degree range. So a lot of people have asked me for tips on different heating elements or what can you do to help control that temperature if you don't want to turn the heater on or if you just want to basically have a low impact way to affect the temperature of your brew. So one option is using a heating mat that's specific for brewing kombucha. My friends over at Fermentaholics actually sent me this one to test out, and I've been using it over the last couple of months because it's been winter here in Los Angeles, and while we are lucky that we live in a pretty moderate climate, it does still get cold here from time to time. And so I have had really great success with using this heating mat around my kombucha brews, basically just to help make that temperature go up a few degrees. So you can use this for both first fermentation or second fermentation, and it will help make sure that one, your kombucha brews are a little bit more resilient to mold, because basically the longer it takes for kombucha to acidify, the more the likelihood of mold increases. So if you're brewing a batch of kombucha and you've thrown your starter tea in there, you've thrown your SCOBY or your pellicle in there, and it is, say, 60 degrees or colder in your brewing environment, that type of environment could be really conducive to mold, because at that temperature, fermentation slows down. So if it's fermenting, but it's fermenting at a slower rate, that basically increases the window of time where mold could infect the brew. So if you're using a heat mat, it doesn't eliminate the possibility of mold, but it greatly reduces the possibility of mold because you're manipulating the temperature variable to make it warmer and more conducive to a faster fermentation process. So if you are interested in using a heat mat to warm up your first ferment, then what I like to do is to just go ahead and wrap the mat around the brew. So this is an electric mat. I plugged it in about 5 minutes ago, so I'm feeling it, and it's warm to the touch, but it's not hot. It's not too hot to keep my hand pressed up against it. So this isn't going to overheat your brew. This mat by Fermentaholics is actually designed specifically for kombucha, so it isn't going to overheat the brew at all. So for first fermentation, if you want to warm your brew up, basically all you have to do is plug it in and wrap it around the vessel, like so. Now, if you don't actually need it to get too hot or you're afraid of it overheating your brew, then you could actually, rather than wrapping it around the brew, you could just place it on top of the mat. So if you want to use the heat mat for second fermentation, here's how I usually do it. So I just take the mat and I wrap it around the brew. So it doesn't usually wrap around all of my kombucha bottles, but what I do is over the course of the couple of days that I'm fermenting, I'll just try to rotate the bottles in and out of this kind of circle of warmth that the heat mat provides, and that helps speed up the fermentation process. That makes it so that even in colder temperatures, my kombucha is still fermenting within a few days and carbonating to the level of carbonation that I like. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any links to your favorite types of heat maps, definitely go ahead and share them in the comment section down below. And if you're curious about where to find this particular heat mat, I'll go ahead and put a link in the description box to where you can find this as well. So I hope this was helpful. If you want other resources about kombucha brewing, definitely check out the other videos on my channel. And as always, you can find more in-depth articles and a list of all of the topics that I cover on my website at youbrewkombucha.com. Happy brewing!